Hey everybody, happy Thursday. Hope you're getting ready for a nice relaxing weekend coming up. Tomorrow's Friday, which is always exciting. Um, I wanted to just briefly discuss the idea of weight gain as it pertains to the winter months. So there tends to be this phenomenon of people adding sort of an extra layer, if you want, during those winter months, and then having to kind of scramble to try to lose some of that extra body fat before leading into the summer. And I would like to save you that whole hassle and see if you can't at least maintain the weight that you have now so that you don't have to stress so much once you head into March and kind of start preparing for those hotter months. Again, the context for this really is, perhaps you've been working really hard and now fall is over, it's going into the winter. But even the fall, I would say that basically the phenomenon of winter weight gain sort of begins in November, ends in sort of early March. But so even if you've been working really hard and maybe you're at a weight that you want to be at, but you're like, okay, you got all these holidays coming up and everything else, it kind of puts all your hard work at risk. So I think as a bare minimum, you want to strategize around how can you maintain what you've been working hard for. Or if you know that you're somebody who has continued to gain weight throughout the years, and typically this happens during the winter for most people, you might want to think about, okay, how can I slow this progression of weight gain? So with that said, there's a whole bunch of reasons why people tend to gain weight during this time period. One, of course, is the fact that there's multiple back-to-back holidays, all involving and pretty much centered around food, indulgence, alcohol, and what have you. So that'll probably be a discussion for another time. So let's put aside that whole component of these winter months and focus on sort of lifestyle things for what you can do between November and March to kind of keep up with what you need to do. So holidays, notwithstanding. The first thing I would say is, because it's winter, it's going to be kind of chilly. I mean, we're talking about if you're in the Northeast in the United States, in the Midwest, of course, and some other places. But typically, you're not going to be moving around as much. And that's a problem. Aerobic exercise goes a long way to burn calories, move blood, keep you feeling good. And you'll find that there's a big drop off from how many steps you were taking in the summer versus how many steps you're taking in the winter. So what I would advise you do, most people have a smartphone that tracks their steps. Take a look at what your movement was like as an average between, say, June and September. Take a look at that step average, and you're going to really want to try to match that average daily step into your winter months. And that's going to really probably mean that you consciously schedule taking walks. I usually suggest 1 to 2 miles a day to start. So that's an easy one. You will have to bundle up and take a walk, but it's okay. So you just got to kind of, resist the natural thing of wanting to stay inside. So bundle up, put a podcast on and just go out for a walk, and you'll adapt to the chilliness and just do it. So to really sum that up, make sure that you keep the same amount of steps that you were doing during the summer and apply those exact same steps, that number, through the winter. So my challenge to you is, can you get around 10,000 steps a day during the winter? Let's see what you can do. The next thing is, I would say, start adjusting your caloric intake and your food choices based upon what's sort of seasonal. And the main feature of that idea is to reduce probably your fruit intake, your sugary fruit intake. If you're potentially moving less, you want to avoid sort of higher carb diets. And so I would say do away with those sort of summer fruits, like berries and bananas and watermelon, things like that. Put those aside and opt for more salad and cabbage and squash and some root vegetables. This will help you keep sort of a lower glycemic index, which will help keeping blood sugar sort of stabilized. And again, a smaller serving of those things relative to what you're eating to fruit can help you reduce calories without having to think too much about it. So staying in season does have a good benefit there. The third idea would be, I would turn, if you imagine that your exercises and your training has different modes, right? I would turn your training to winter mode. And what I think you might benefit from is increasing your cardiovascular output. We know that this is a way of sort of manually burning calories, and it just might be something that you want to increase, not just for the purpose of burning calories, but if you are moving less based upon where you are and what you're doing in the season, you might have to compensate for that by imposing more cardiovascular activities on yourself, because the non-exercise related activity has gone down. But keep in mind, you're trying to keep that the same, right? Based on the walking and everything else. You'll also want to increase intensity in some sense. So you're going to do more sort of cardiovascular activities, and I would suggest ramping up intensity a little bit for a higher heart rate weightlifting activity. And one great way you can do that is to do your exercise and reduce the amount of rest that you take between exercises and or between sets. And this will help set you up for a greater sort of post-exercise caloric burn, which is not a feature of aerobic exercise, but is a feature for anaerobic exercise, particularly with weightlifting. The fourth idea that I have is, see if you can't reduce your exposure to artificial light. So of course the sun is going down earlier, and so it's going to be darker. There are some studies that indicate that our bodies may very well crave carbohydrates and other foods in the winter a bit more, because we are staying up later in a artificial sunlight environment, and it's kind of cueing our hormones to say, all right, we should be out sort of foraging, hunting, and gathering, when in reality, what we need to be doing is sleeping. So reduce as much as you can exposure to artificial light. You can get glasses that filter the blue light. You can dim your lights as much as you can. But really avoiding too much artificial light after the sun goes down would greatly benefit you. And the more you can do that, the less stress you'll have, the more cravings you'll have. And this leads me into my fifth and final piece, which is to sleep as much as you can. The winter is meant for more sleeping, so we need to do that. Don't stay up too late. With the sun going down earlier, you get the benefit of it being darker out, therefore an easier time going to sleep a little bit earlier. And sleep is probably the most important thing regardless of the time of year. Because if you have energy to do your intensive workouts, to do your cardio training, to take your wintry walks, you're going to be able to do this longer term, and it's not going to feel like such a, so you're not going to feel the need for so much willpower to try to make yourself do things when you're fatigued and tired. So sleep is at the top of the priority, right? It just happens to be the fifth example that I have here. So, all right, people, I really hope that you get something from this and take it and apply it as soon as you can. None of these things that I mentioned would cost any money. Just got to organize, prioritize, and follow through and complete. So I would love to know specifically what you got from this. So please leave a comment. And if, of course, you want or need help, I'm here. So just message me. I'm ready to help you. All right. Bye.